neon moving through the glass. We were sitting in the back seat, watching all the city pass. You were quiet beside me, looking somewhere far away. I wanted to say something, but every word seemed out of place. The radio was playing softly, a slow melody in the dark, and every passing street light left another shadow on your heart. You turned and asked me softly, "Why are you looking at me?" I smiled and looked away again, afraid of what you'd see. And the silence changed, the distance disappeared, and suddenly I realized how close you were. When you leaned closer, I forgot the words I knew. Every sound became distant, every thought returned to you. When you leaned closer, the whole night held its breath. I felt something in that moment that I couldn't second guess. You asked me if I was nervous. I laughed and said not much, but you knew I wasn't telling truth from the trembling in my voice. The rain became much heavier, the windshield blurred with light, but neither one was watching the road outside that night. You told me you were frightened of trusting someone again. I said I'd never promised that I don't send and everything, but I can stay beside you when the difficult days arrive. Maybe that's enough to give this feeling a try. You looked at me in silence, like you were searching for a sign, and slowly moved a little closer until your shoulder touched mine. When you leaned closer, I knew I wanted you, not just for one evening, but for everything we do. When you leaned closer, the world outside was gone. Two people night was almost over. The streets were turning gray. We found an open coffee shop at the edge of yesterday. Your hair was slightly messy, your eyes were tired but bright, and somehow seeing you at sunrise felt better than the night. The chairs were on the tables, the city hadn't stirred. A quiet song was playing, and neither one of us said a word. You wrapped your hands around the cup, I watched the morning grow. There was something in that silence that neither one could show. You asked me where I'd been before. I said I'd traveled far, not just across the highways, but through the person that I was. You smiled and looked outside where the first birds crossed the sky, and told me about your childhood and the dreams you kept inside. I didn't know a stranger could feel familiar so fast, like we'd been waiting somewhere for this moment to arrive. Coffee at dawn, your fingers wrapped around mine, the city slowly waking while you were looking into my eyes. Coffee at dawn, no reason left to pretend. I could spend 1,000 mornings watching this beginning never end. You laughed about my coffee, said I made it far too strong. I told you I'd drink anything if you kept sitting here this long. You shook your head and smiled, then stole another sip from mine. And somehow something ordinary started feeling so divine. Outside the buses started moving, shops began to open wide, but inside that little corner time had nowhere else to hide. You told me about the people who had taught you how to leave. I told you about the reasons I had stopped myself from dreaming. We didn't have the answers, we didn't know the way, but something about that morning made me want another day. Coffee at dawn, your smile beneath the light. I never knew that falling could happen before daylight. Coffee at dawn, the world beginning again, and I want it every morning if it started with you then. The waitress brought the check, the room began to fill. We stayed there just a little longer, neither ready to leave still. You asked me where I was going, I said, anywhere you are. You laughed and called me foolish, but I could see it in your eyes. We walked along the sidewalk as the sunlight touched the rain. Your shadow moved beside me like a picture in a frame. The city looked completely different from the way it had before. Maybe nothing had really changed, maybe I had changed much more. Coffee at dawn, two hearts without a plan, learning how a simple morning could become the start of something grand. Coffee at dawn, the first light on your face. I never knew that love could feel so peaceful in one place. city ambience fades behind the music. Morning birds appear in the distance. The arrangement grows warmer before returning to the final verse. Weeks turned into conversations. Days became familiar things. We learned each other's habits, the comfort that routine brings. You still complained about my coffee, I still made it way too strong. You take a sip and roll your eyes, then somehow drink it all along. We had difficult evenings, we had moments we misunderstood. But every time the silence came, we found our way back when we could. Love wasn't like the movies, it wasn't perfect every day. It was choosing to keep talking when the easy words had gone away. Maybe happiness is quieter than the stories people tell. Maybe it's a tired conversation with the person who knows you well. Maybe it's a little table, 2 cups beside the glass, and realizing you don't need to make the moment last. Now when the morning reaches us, I know what I want to see. Your sleepy eyes beside me, that familiar smile for me. The coffee still tastes bitter, the world still moves too fast, but sharing one more sunrise makes the ordinary last. I think about that first day, how neither one could know that a quiet cup of coffee would become the place we'd grow. Coffee at dawn. The room was dark and quiet, only streetlights crossed the wall. I was halfway through a dream when I heard your evening call. You asked me how my day was, I said nothing much went right. And somehow we kept talking until the middle of the night. You told me about your morning, the traffic and the rain, the little things that bothered you, the memories that remained. I told you about my worries, the plans I couldn't make. You listened without judging every wrong turn I had taken. There was something in your patience, something gentle in your tone. It made a crowded world outside feel smaller than my room. I didn't notice when it happened, didn't feel my heart move on. I only knew your conversations were the reason I stayed up. It's the way you say goodnight that keeps me awake at night. 3 little words before you sleep feel like something I can keep. It's the way you say goodnight, soft beneath the fading light. I never knew a simple phrase could make me fall this way. Soon we started talking daily, not because we had to speak, but because the hours felt empty when your voice was out of reach. You learned the way I laughed when I didn't know what to say. I learned the little pauses that meant you'd had a difficult day. Sometimes we'd sit in silence, neither one afraid to leave. There was comfort in the quiet that I never thought I'd need. I had always feared attachment, I was careful with my heart, but you made every conversation feel like somewhere I could start. It's the way you say goodnight that makes everything feel right. Even when you're far away, I can feel you through the gray. It's the way you say goodnight, like tomorrow isn't far, like no matter where we wake up, I'll still know just where you are. One evening you were quieter, your voice was almost gone. I asked you if you were alright, you said you'd had a long day. So I stayed there on the phone, though we barely spoke at all. Sometimes being there for someone means refusing to hang up. You finally started laughing, said I didn't have to stay. I told you I wasn't leaving until you felt okay. And somewhere in that moment I understood what this had become. You weren't simply part of my evenings, you had become my favorite one. Then one night you said you loved me, almost too softly to hear. I didn't answer quickly because I wanted to be sincere. I closed my eyes for a moment, let the silence take its place. Then I said the words I'd carried every time I saw your face. You laughed through a little silence, I could hear the smile you wore. And suddenly the distance didn't matter anymore. It's the way you say goodnight that I never want to lose. A little piece of tenderness that only comes from you. It's the way you say goodnight that makes tomorrow feel brand new. Because every sleeping hour brings another day with you. Now we've shared enough tomorrows to know that love isn't easy. There are mornings filled with silence, there are evenings that feel heavy. But you still call when you're tired, I still ask about your day. And somehow those ordinary rituals keep the distance far away. I don't need dramatic promises, I don't need a perfect scene. I just want the quiet moments that exist between the dreams. A message before sleeping, a voice before the dawn, a reminder that we're together even when the day is gone. If someday the world gets louder, if our lives become too fast, I hope we keep these little moments that were never meant to last. Because love can hide in simple things, in a voice behind the phone, in someone saying sleep well when they know you're not alone. Tonight the room is peaceful, your breathing fills the line. The clock is moving slowly, but I don't care. The streetlights flicker one by one. Fog is crawling through the lane. Midnight hides behind the buildings, and the shadows know my name. I leave the crowded station with the city on my back, neon bleeding through the darkness, every window painted black. There's a silence in the alley, something moving out of sight. I can hear my footsteps answering every footstep in the night. I don't know when I became someone I barely recognized. Maybe somewhere between the failures and the things I sacrificed. I've been running from the mirror, I've been hiding from the truth, but the darkness never judges, it just waits until I'm through. The shadows know my name, they remember every flame, every road I walked alone, every place I called my home. The shadows know my name, they have watched me change. When the whole world turns away, they are waiting in the gray. A black car slowly passes, headlights cutting through the mist. For a second I remember all the chances that I missed. There are voices in the distance, someone laughing near the bar, but the sound becomes a whisper as I stare up at the stars. I once believed that being strong meant never showing pain. Now I know the strongest people sometimes walk alone in rain. I've carried every secret like a stone beneath my skin. Every time I tried to bury one, another one would begin. The shadows know my name, they've memorized my mistakes. They've seen every door I closed, every promise that I broke. The shadows know my name, they don't ask me to explain, they simply follow where I go, through the darkness, through the cold. I stop beneath an old street lamp, watch the rain fall through the light. There is something almost peaceful about being lost at night. No phone ringing in my pocket, no voice telling me where to be. For the first time in forever, there's just silence following me. I hear a distant saxophone from a club across the street, slow notes drifting through the darkness, falling softly at my feet. Maybe shadows are my enemies, maybe they are pieces left behind, parts of me I couldn't carry when I crossed another line. Maybe every scar remembers something I was meant to learn. Maybe every darkened hallway shows me where I should sun drifting through the fog. The horizon starts to brighten. Gray replaces midnight blue. The buildings lose their darkness and the streets begin anew. I turn around and see my shadow stretching longer on the ground. For the first time I don't fear it. For the first time I don't turn around. It has followed every mile, every loss and every change. Maybe all along the darkness was simply teaching me my name. The shadows know my name, but they don't control my fate. They remember where I fall and not the person I became. The shadows know my name, and I finally know theirs. They are pieces of my journey that I no longer need to fear. The street lights turn away, the fog begins to disappear. Morning opens through the skyline, and the city becomes clear. I walk forward without hiding, no more running from the grave. The shadows follow quietly, but this time they don't lead the way. Black coffee cooling on the table, midnight leaning against the wall. Smoke curls slowly toward the ceiling, while the rain begins to fall. The waitress turns the chairs around. One by one the lights go dim. A tired song plays from the speakers, and the night grows cold and thin. I sit beside the corner window, watching strangers cross the street. Everybody seems to have somewhere, everybody but me. Your memory arrives without warning, like a song I didn't choose. I thought I'd buried all those feelings, but tonight they broke loose. There's a certain kind of silence that only lonely people know. It doesn't need a single sentence, it just refuses to let go. Black coffee and cigarette dreams, nothing is ever what it seems. I watch the smoke become a cloud, while your memory speaks too loud. Black coffee and cigarette dreams, pieces floating down invisible streams. I keep drinking from an empty cup, trying to convince myself I'm tough. The old jukebox starts another record, something slow and out of tune. A trumpet slips between the shadows, like a voice beneath the moon. I remember our December evenings, windows covered up with frost. You said nothing lasts forever, I pretended not to hear the cost. We had plans written on napkins, city circled in blue ink. We were always talking about tomorrow, never stopping just to think. Funny how the smallest moments become the hardest ones to lose. A photograph, a sentiment, a pair of forgotten shoes, black coffee and cigarette dreams, old memories tearing at the seams. Every street becomes a question, every night becomes confession. Black coffee and cigarette dreams, nothing stays exactly as it seems. I can change the room I'm sitting in, but I can't change where I've been. A stranger takes the seat beside me, orders whiskey, looks away. We don't exchange a single word, but somehow understand the pain. He stares outside into the rainfall, I stare down into my cup. Two different lives beneath one ceiling, both pretending to be enough. Maybe everyone has someone they still talk to in their mind, someone they could never keep, someone they could never leave behind. The clock moves past the hour, the coffee turns completely cold. I reach into my jacket pocket, find a letter I never sent. 3 pages full of honesty, 3 pages full of fear. I wrote them when you left me, but never brought them near. I fold the paper one more time, put it back where it belongs. Some words don't need an audience, some regrets become their own songs. Let the smoke rise toward the ceiling, let the night consume the sound. Let the rain erase the footsteps of the places we were bound. I don't need to blame the weather, I don't need to blame the years. We were two imperfect people trying to outrun our fears. Slow, 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 slow. Slow brushes against the snare, a distant saxophone through the door. Vinyl crackle fills the silence, rain becomes the rhythm line. The whole room feels suspended somewhere outside of time. The first light enters through the window, turning black into pale gray. The waitress starts the coffee machine, and night gives up the day. I leave some money on the table, put my jacket on and stand. For once I don't look toward the doorway, for once I don't expect your hand. The street is cold beneath my footsteps, but the air feels strangely clean. Maybe this is what forgiveness looks like when it isn't seen. Black coffee and cigarette dreams, now they're quieter than they seemed. The memories can stay behind me, they don't have to define me. Black coffee and cigarette dreams, fading like old movie scenes. I don't need to chase the past, some nights are meant to pass. The cup is empty, the smoke is gone, the chairs are waiting for another dawn. I walk beneath the morning light, no answers in my hands, just one more night behind me, and the courage to keep moving. Black coffee, cold pavement, Concrete towers rise through the mist. Midnight hangs above the street. Neon flickers on the pavement while the city moves beneath my feet. There are footsteps in the alley. There are voices through the walls. There are strangers chasing something they may never find at all. A woman waits beside the station. A man is staring at his phone. Thousands move beneath the skyline. Still everybody feels alone. I watch the traffic paint the windows with reflections red and white. Every face becomes a story that disappears into the night. The city never asked your reasons, never cares where you have been. It just swallows every secret and waits for you to breathe again. This is the city of broken echoes, where forgotten dreams still glow, where every lonely heart keeps moving even when it doesn't know where to go. This is the city of broken echoes, built from memories and stone. Millions underneath the skyline, still searching for a place called home. There's a jazz club down the corner, blue smoke rising through the door. A tired piano plays a melody I've never heard before. Someone laughs beside the barroom. Someone cries behind the stairs. Nobody notices the difference when the music fills the air. I sit alone beside the window, watching headlights cross the rain, thinking how a crowded city can still feel like an empty train. Maybe loneliness is different when you know you're not alone. Maybe every soul around you carries secrets of its own. This is the city of broken echoes, where the midnight rivers flow, where the past walks through the present and refuses to let go. This is the city of broken echoes, where the restless never sleep. Every promise disappears beneath the concrete buried deep. The subway shakes the pavement, rattling windows in the night. 1,000 tired faces disappear beneath fluorescent light. I remember being younger, thinking life would make more sense. Now I know the road keeps changing without asking for consent. I've lost friends along the highways. I've watched old dreams turn to dust. I've seen people chase forever, only to discover they lost trust. The rain begins to fall much harder, washing dust from every sign. The city wears a silver jacket underneath the streetlight shine. I walk beneath the overpass, hear the water underneath, and for once I stop pretending that I know what lies beneath. Maybe I don't need the answers, maybe I don't need control. Maybe finding peace is simply learning how to lose the road. Let the sirens fade behind me, let the buildings disappear, let the darkness keep its secrets. I don't have to hold them here. Every scar became a chapter. Every failure left a trace. Every road I thought was ending was another kind of place. Saxophone rises through the midnight afterglow. Piano notes fall like raindrops. Ambient shadows fill the air. The city breathes beneath the rhythm, heavy, restless, unaware. Near the river before sunrise, I can see the skyline change. Darkness slowly turns to silver, and the streets begin to wake. The woman leaves the station. The man puts down his phone. The jazz club locks its doorway, and everyone goes home. I realize the city never promised that the lonely would be saved. It only gave us roads to wander and the courage to be brave. This is the city of broken echoes, but broken doesn't mean destroyed. Every shattered dream can teach you how to hear your inner voice. This is the city of broken echoes, where the lost can start again, where the night may hold your sorrow, but the morning brings a different frame. The neon fades behind the buildings. Morning settles on the street. I walk beneath a quiet skyline with the rhythm in my feet. The city keeps its broken echoes, but I don't need them anymore. I carry only what has taught me. Soft rain against the window, street lights melting into gold. The city wears a quiet shadow while the night begins to unfold. I found your perfume in the hallway, a trace that time forgot to steal. For a moment you were standing there, and everything became too real. The apartment feels much larger since you walked away that night. Empty chairs beneath the window, cold reflections from the light. I keep the radio playing softly just to fill the vacant air. Every song becomes a doorway to a place where you were there. I don't chase the past anymore, but the past still follows me like a distant train at midnight, vanishing beyond the trees. Velvet rain fall over me, cover what I don't wanna see. Let your silver curtains hide every memory I keep inside. Velvet rain, stay through the night, turn these lonely walls to white. Let a coffee cup beside the sink, your favorite one still sitting there. I almost reach to move it, then remember you're not here. Outside, a couple walks together, sharing shelter underneath the tree. I wonder if they know how fragile something beautiful can be. The old clock above the doorway keeps repeating every hour. Time can move without permission, but it cannot change what happened. Some nights feel like photographs frozen underneath the light, and some memories grow louder when everything becomes quiet. Velvet rain fall over me, wash away what used to be. Let the streets become a river, carry yesterday forever. Velvet rain cover this room, hide the scent of old perfume. If tomorrow brings the sun, let it find me when I'm done. I remember summer evenings, your hand resting inside mine. We would talk about forever, as if forever had a time. You wanted distant places, I was afraid to leave. We kept building separate futures without knowing we would grieve. Now the photographs are fading, edges curling from the years. Funny how a single picture can still bring back hidden tears. Maybe we were beautiful because we couldn't last. Maybe every perfect moment was designed to become the past. I won't blame the falling rain, I won't blame the empty room. Some doors close without a warning, some flowers simply lose their bloom. Slow flowers, slow slows beneath the rain. A muted trumpet in the distance, deep bass moving like a heartbeat, soft drums disappearing into mist. The clouds begin to open slowly, morning waits behind the gray. I watch the final drops of water disappear along the glass. For the first time in a long while, I don't wish to turn the clock. I don't need another answer, I don't need another knock. I open up the window, let the colder air come through, and realize the room is empty, but my heart is not empty too. Velvet rain, you've carried me through the night I couldn't leave. Now the streets are drying slowly, and there's something new to breathe. Velvet rain, fade into dawn, take the weight I've carried on. I can keep the memories without letting them keep me. The city wakes in silence, the last clouds drift away. I close the curtains softly and welcome in the day. No more waiting by the window, no more asking where you've been. The rain has finished falling, and I can finally begin. The clock is moving slowly. The room is almost dark. Rain is tracing silver lines across the window in the dark. I never told you what was hiding behind the calmness in my eyes. I became an expert at pretending, turning truth into disguise. You would ask me if I loved you, I would smile and change the scene, because saying what I really felt made everything too real for me. I was afraid of losing something I had barely learned to hold, so I built a wall around my heart and watched the distance grow. Now the silence fills the room, and there's nowhere left to run. Every word I never gave you returns when the night has come. This is my midnight confession, the truth I couldn't say before. I loved you more than I admitted, but I was too afraid to show. This is my midnight confession, written underneath the moon. I had everything beside me, then I lost it far too soon. Your old sweater hangs beside me, still carrying a trace of you. I remember winter evenings when the world felt almost new. We would sit beneath the window, listening to the city breathe. You believed I could be honest, I was someone I couldn't be. I thought time would give me courage, thought tomorrow would be kind, but tomorrow became another day. I left the truth behind. Now the record keeps on turning, slowly spinning through the night, and every note reminds me of the chances I denied. This is my midnight confession, the words trapped inside my chest. I wanted to give you everything, but fear convinced me otherwise. This is my midnight confession, no excuses left to make. I can finally say I loved you, even if you're far away. I remember our last evening. You were standing by the door. You waited for me to stop you, but I couldn't say much more. Your eyes were asking questions, my silence gave the answer. You turned around without a word and disappeared into the weather. I watched your footsteps vanish beyond the hallway light, knowing there was something I could do, but choosing not to fight. If I could return to that moment, I'd forget my foolish pride. I'd tell you every secret I kept buried deep inside. I'd tell you I was frightened, I'd tell you I was wrong. I'd tell you that your absence has been with me all along. But the past doesn't open doors, and time won't change its mind. So I speak these words to nobody and leave the rest behind. photograph away, not because I stopped caring, but because holding on to ghosts won't keep somebody there. Maybe love can have an ending without becoming a lie. Maybe losing you has taught me how to finally say goodbye. This was my midnight confession, the truth I carried far too long. I loved you when I couldn't say it, and I'll remember you when you're gone. This was my midnight confession, a final letter to the past. Some feelings never disappear, they simply learn to breathe at last. The room is getting brighter, the rain has left the glass. I whisper your name one final time, then let the silence pass. No more words left unspoken, no more reasons left to hide. I close the door behind me. Black clouds hanging over downtown, rain tapping on an empty sign. The last streetcar disappears, leaving broken shadows behind. I found your letter in an old coat, folded underneath the lining. The ink was fading with the years, but every word was still reminding. We used to talk until the sunrise, underneath those yellow lights, thinking that forever waited somewhere at the end of every night. Now the buildings stand like witnesses, watching strangers come and go, and I carry what remains of us through streets we used to know. There was a fire in our hands, but we never learned to hold it. Now the smoke is all that's left, and the wind has slowly stolen it. There are ashes on the boulevard, pieces of a love that broke too hard. Every footprint disappears in rain, but somehow I still feel the pain. There are ashes on the boulevard, burning memories beneath the stars. I keep walking through the night alone, looking for a place that feels like home. A trumpet cries behind a doorway, deep and lonely through the haze. Someone laughs inside the darkness while I count the yesterdays. Your favorite corner of the city looks completely different now. The little cafe lost its windows, and the old trees have been cut down. I remember how you promised that you'd never leave this town, but promises are fragile things when the morning comes around. We were young enough to believe that broken things could always mend, but some stories lose their ending long before we reach the end. There are ashes on the boulevard, fragments scattered near the cars. Rain keeps washing over everything, but it can't erase the scars. There are ashes on the boulevard, underneath the fading stars. I don't know what I'm searching for, maybe just who we were before. Midnight turns into another hour. Another cigarette burns down. I watch the smoke become a ghost before it disappears somehow. A lonely train moves through the distance, steel against the silent night. For a second I imagine you are waiting underneath the light. But imagination has a price, and memories don't tell the truth. They make the past look beautiful because the present has no proof. Let the rain come down, let the thunder speak, let the darkness take what I am too tired to keep. I don't need another promise, I don't need another sign. Some things are meant to disappear when they've reached the end of slow blend, slow, 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 slow. Black clouds hanging over downtown, rain tapping on an empty sign. The last streetcar disappears, leaving broken shadows behind. I found your letter in an old coat, folded underneath the lining. The ink was fading with the years, but every word was still reminding. We used to talk until the sunrise underneath those yellow lights, thinking that forever waited somewhere at the end of every night. Now the buildings stand like witnesses, watching strangers come and go. And I carry what remains of us through streets we used to know. There was a fire in our hands, but we never learned to hold it. Now the smoke is all that's left, and the wind has slowly stolen it. There are ashes on the boulevard, pieces of a love that broke too hard. Every footprint disappears in rain, but somehow I still feel the pain. There are ashes on the boulevard, burning memories beneath the stars. I keep walking through the night alone, looking for a place that feels like home. A trumpet cries behind a doorway, deep and lonely through the haze. Someone laughs inside the darkness while I count the yesterdays. Your favorite corner of the city looks completely different now. The little cafe lost its windows, and the old trees have been cut down. I remember how you promised that you'd never leave this town. But promises are fragile things when the morning comes around. We were young enough to believe that broken things could always mend, but some stories lose their ending. There are ashes on the boulevard, fragments scattered near the cars. Rain keeps washing over. Midnight roams across the city. Rain is whispering on the glass. Blue lights flicker in the distance, Another night becomes the past. I walk slowly down the avenue where the pavement shines like silver rain. Every doorway looks familiar, every shadow speaks your name. The taxi disappears around the corner, headlights fading into blue. There are thousands of people passing, but somehow I still look for you. I don't know what I'm searching for. Maybe something we once knew. Maybe just another reason to keep walking without you. I'm living in the neon without you, underneath the sky painted blue. The city keeps moving like nothing changed, while I'm standing still inside yesterday. I'm living in the neon without you. Every street light leads me back to you. I can disappear into the midnight crowd, but your memory always finds me somehow. There's an old jazz record playing from a basement bar nearby. A lonely saxophone is crying like it understands why. I remember your quiet laughter, the way you looked away when you knew I couldn't tell you all the words I couldn't say. Now the chairs are empty and the bartender kills the light, but I remain beside the window, watching strangers cross the night. Maybe love was just a moment, maybe we were never meant to stay. But some moments last forever when they never fade away. I'm living in the neon without you, where every reflection feels untrue. The rain keeps falling through the city streets, and every heartbeat sounds incomplete. I'm living in the neon without you, trying to find a world that's new. But every road beneath these signs still carries pieces of you and I. 2 o'clock beneath the towers, 3 o'clock beside the train, 4 o'clock and I'm still walking. Listen to the sound of rain. The skyline starts to disappear behind a curtain made of gray. I wonder if you're sleeping or remember me the same way. I keep your photograph hidden inside an old worn coat, not because I want you back, but because I can't let go. Maybe someday I'll stop searching, maybe someday I'll understand that losing you was not the ending, just a road I didn't plan. Maybe morning brings forgiveness, maybe daylight makes me strong. Maybe I'll finally stop believing that the night will last this long. Saxophone rises and disappears into the haze. Dawn is hiding beyond the buildings. The first birds begin to call. Streetlights slowly lose their color as the darkness starts to fall. I stand beneath the final neon, watching morning touch the street. For the first time in forever, I don't feel the need to leave. I was living in the neon without you. Now the sky is turning something new. The city still remembers yesterday, but I don't have to carry it away. I was living in the neon without you. Now I'm finding another view. Your memory can stay behind without controlling this heart of mine. The rain has come, the streets are quiet, the neon fades into the morning light. I take one breath, then walk away, leaving your shadow where the night became day. No more running